Hey, what's up everybody? Today we're going to talk about the child tax credit. Now I do have another video that explains the child tax credit and the refundable versus non-refundable portion of it, but we are going to be covering quite a bit of that again today. So what's changing with the child tax credit? What's the deal? How do you get it? How is it going to impact you? That's what we're going to talk about in this video. So as you might know, the child tax credit is increasing pretty significantly. Right now it is $2,000 per child. That's the total amount. Of that, $1,400 of it is refundable. The other $600 is not. We'll talk about that a little bit. But that is going to $3,000 per child for any child 6 years and older as of December 31st of this year. For any child that is still under 6 years of age, as of December 31st of this year, the amount is going to $3,600 from $2,000 right now. Also, they expanded it where a child who had reached age 17 could not qualify for the $2,000 child tax credit. A child who is 17 years old but younger than 18 will qualify for the $3,000 child tax credit this year. Okay, so let's jump into how's this going to impact you, because another big piece of this is they're going to pay this in advance. Now, a lot of people didn't quite understand this with the current stimulus checks or the recovery rebate credits, but those stimulus checks that went out to you were a tax credit for your return that was paid in advance. The child tax credit is going to have that happen as well starting here in July of this year. They're going to start paying it in advance on a monthly basis up to half of the credit. We'll get into that a little bit here in the calculation, but that's the basics of it. The stimulus payments, if you ended up making too much money and not actually qualifying for them, but you got them in advance, you still got to keep them. The child tax credit is going to not be that way, actually. It is going to not be that way. If you get it in advance and then it turns out based on your income, you do not qualify for it, you will be required to pay it back. That is a big difference, and that is one of the reasons why I believe they're allowing you to opt out of receiving the early payments. Now, this is not available yet, but I did get a notice in the mail. I'll pop it up right here. You probably will get one too, where it says you might be eligible for these. We're going to start sending them to you. More information is coming. They're going to send you another letter, but they also give you the website. I'll put that up here as well, where you can check for some updates on this. But there's going to be a way to go to the IRS website and opt out of getting these in advance. The reason you might want to do that is if you think your income is going to go over the limits and that you're not going to actually qualify for them. So maybe based on your 2020 return that you have already filed, they're going to send you advance payments, but you know 2021, your income is going to be higher, you're going to go above these limits, and so you opt out of receiving these ahead of time so that you don't end up having to pay them back when you file your return next year. Now, the phase out limits for this, if you're single, the phase out for your adjusted gross income is going to be $75,000. If you're married filing joint, it's going to be $150,000. So if you're above those amounts, you may not get the full amount of this. Now, what that means though is it's going to phase out over time. So if you go above 150, you're not going to lose all $3,000 per child. You're simply going to lose a portion of it until it fully phases out to zero. But you might qualify for some of it. Now, another big difference here is before I mentioned the child tax credit was $2,000. Of that, $1,400 was refundable and $600 was not. So let's look at a quick example about how that would come into play. Let's say that your tax liability was $200. All right. At the end of the day, your tax liability was only $200 and you have two children. $2,000 times two children under the old child tax credit would have been $4,000. Okay. So you would have gotten $4,000, but you only can take $200 up here because that's your tax liability. So you have $3,800 left. 4,000 minus the 200 we used here would be 3,800. Well, under the old one, you could not take $3,800 because the maximum refundable portion was only $1,400 per child. So you're going to lose out on quite a bit of this because now $1,400 times 2 is $2,800. Okay, you have $3,800 available, but $1,400 times 2 is the refundable portion is $2,800. So you basically lost out on $1,000 of tax credit that had you had more income, more tax liability, you would have benefited from that extra $1,000 of tax credit. It didn't happen in this example, you lost out on that. The big change here is instead of doing this, they're saying the full $3,000 is completely refundable. So there's not going to be a portion here where you lose out on it. You might use some of it up here and the rest be refundable, or the full amount might be refundable, just depending on what your income tax liability is. But you won't lose out on any because the full amount is now refundable. That also applies to the new $3,600, which is for children less than 6 years old as of December 31. Now, another big piece of this is they're going to send you up to half of this in advance. Okay, let's look at that real quick. All right, so if they're going to send you up to half of this in advance, let's go back to our example of 2 children qualifying for the $3,000 child tax credit. That's $6,000. They're going to send you a half of that, or $3,000, which is $1,500 per child, in advance over the next 6 months: July, August, September, October, November, December. All right, so what that's going to come out to is $250 per month per child, or for the $3,000, that's going to be $500 per month for both children from July through December. So you're going to check of $500 per month times 6 months. All right, that's going to give you your $3,000 in advance. Then when you go to do your tax return, let's jump back to this example where they had $7,500 of tax liability. You're going to calculate that you qualify for $6,000. There's going to be a worksheet somewhere where you qualify for $6,000 of child tax credit. You're going to say, I already received $3,000 of it, so I have $3,000 now remaining, okay? So the $3,000 will be what goes over here to offset your tax liability. That's going to bring that down to $4,500, and then minus your $2,000 withholding in this example is going to leave you with a balance due actually of $2,500. That's just in this example, but that's what's going to happen. You're going to get $500 a month for 6 months for 2 kids qualifying for the $3,000 child tax credit, which is going to be $3,000 that you're going to get between July and the end of the year. When you go to do your tax return, you qualify for a $6,000 tax credit. You have already received $3,000 of that. Therefore, you're now entitled to $3,000 on your tax return because you've already received the other half ahead of time. All right, so how's this going to interact with whether or not you have a balance due or a refund, okay? Now, in this particular example, you saw where originally the $6,000 would have reduced this to $1,500 minus your withholding of $2,000 would have left you with a $500 refund. That would have been the situation here, $500 refund. However, because they gave this to you in advance, you've got $3,000 in advance. Now we're reducing the amount of credit that goes on your return. You still are qualifying for $6,000 tax credit, but you already received $3,000 of that. So because you've already received it, they're going to say 6,000 minus 3 means you get 3 now. You put the 3 on here, you reduce your tax down to $4,500. You had $2,000 withheld. Now you owe $2,500, okay? Now you're in the exact same position both situations, right? You're owing $2,500, so you're going to have to write $2,500, a check of $2,500 to the IRS and pay that balance in this particular situation, whereas in the other one you would have received a $500 refund. However, you're still coming out the exact same. I know it doesn't feel the same, but it honestly is, because under one situation, you're going to get $3,000 between July and December. That's $3,000 in your pocket, and then you're going to turn around in tax time and pay $2,500, okay? They sent me $3,000. I'm now sending them $2,500. I ended up with $500 in my pocket, okay? If they don't send you the $3,000 in advance, you get the full 6, which left you with $1,500 minus $2,000 is $500 refund. You end up with $500 in your pocket. So you end up with that $500 in your pocket either way. That's how it's going to impact whether you get it in advance or not. If you choose not to get it in advance in this situation, I don't want it in advance, when you go to do your tax return, you get a $500 refund. If you choose to get it in advance in this situation, you're going to get $3,000 given to you between now and December. You're then going to turn around and pay $2,500 at tax time. So make sure you don't run out and spend that money, because it is possible that you're going to end up owing some. Now, this is still going to be a fairly rare situation. If you're used to getting a refund under normal situations right now, by getting this in advance, because it's more than what the old child tax credit was, again, it's $3,000 now instead of $2,000. You're going to get $1,500 in advance. It's still likely you're still going to qualify for another $1,500, whereas in the past you qualified for $2,000. So it's likely that if you've been getting a refund in the past, you'll continue to get a refund. So I wouldn't necessarily stress out about this, but I would just set some of that aside. Just don't run out and spend it all, just in case by getting it in advance, it does affect whether or not you get a refund or owe taxes at the end of the year. But again, because they increase the amount in conjunction with paying it out to you early, you're probably going to be all right. But of course, can't guarantee that without looking at your specific situation. All right, my name is Brad. I'm with Wooten CPA. My goal is to bring peace to your finance and tax responsibilities. Hope that these videos are doing that for you. Please subscribe to the channel. Don't forget to hit the like button on this video and then the bell so you're notified when new videos come out. Thank you for watching.